When I dropped out of school, it wasn't easy to find work. Nobody wanted to hire a girl with no qualifications. I was tired of applying for jobs advertised in newspapers and on the internet without receiving any replies. One day I spotted an ad for a job that was not so tempting, but I really needed the money. The ad said they were looking for a live-in babysitter to take care of 3 young children. It said no qualifications necessary, they just required someone young, responsible, and pretty. I called the number and the phone was answered by a woman with a sweet and friendly voice. When I told her I was calling about the babysitting job, she hired me on the spot. She didn't even want to meet me in person first, but she needed me to start immediately. I was delighted. The next morning I drove over to the house to meet the family. As soon as I got there, I saw that the house was a beautiful house, both inside and out. You could tell the family was wealthy. The woman and her husband greeted me with broad smiles on their faces and introduced me to their children. There were 2 boys and a girl. Sebastian was 6 years old, Damien was 5, and Lenka was 4. The kids seemed to be nice, happy, and friendly. They were always polite, never fought with each other, and never made a mess. All they did was play alone or read a book. The parents announced that they were going out to dinner and wouldn't be home until late that night. They told me the children had already been fed, so all I had to do was get them ready for bed. The mother gave me a phone number and told me to call her if there was any emergency. The father told me to make myself at home, and if I was hungry, I could take whatever I wanted from the fridge. After the parents left, the children sat down on the sofa to watch TV. They were very quiet and barely said a word. During the commercial, I was feeling a bit hungry, so I went into the kitchen to make myself a snack. As I was rummaging around the refrigerator, I couldn't help but notice 2 large jars that were stuffed in the back of the fridge. Both of them were wrapped in brown paper and had rubber bands sealing the rim. I wondered what on earth could be in them. My curiosity got the better of me, so I took one out of the jars and peeled back the brown wrapping to take a peek at the inside. It was full of long strips of fatty meat floating in a murky red liquid. I couldn't tell what kind of meat it was, but it didn't look like pork or beef. Just as I was about to put the jar back where I found it, I heard a noise behind me. It startled me so much I banged my head on the shelf above me. When I turned around, Sebastian was standing in the doorway staring at me. "Put that back," he said. "That's not for you." The look in his eyes and the tone of his voice sent chills down my spine. "Sorry," I muttered. "I was just looking for something to eat." Sebastian didn't reply. He just stood there staring at me. I placed the jar back in the refrigerator and shut the door. Sebastian turned around and went back into the living room. I had lost my appetite, so I went and joined the children in the living room and watched cartoons with them. I was trying not to let my imagination get the better of me when the cartoons finished and the news came on. There was a story of a teenage girl who had gone missing. The police had found her decomposing head in a dumpster. They said they had no idea what had happened to the rest of her. I was afraid the ghastly news would upset the children, so I changed the channel and told them it was time for bed. The kids didn't complain. They just walked up the stairs and said goodbye and went to their bedroom. I put them in their pajamas and got them ready for bed. Then I tucked them in, kissed them all goodnight, and switched out the light. When I went back downstairs, I was bored and had absolutely nothing to do, so I decided to watch a movie. I looked through the family's DVD collection, but all they had were cartoons and Disney movies. I wasn't in the mood for any more kid stuff. On the bottom shelf, I spotted some old VHS tapes. One of them had a strange title. It was M-Girls. This seemed rather curious, so I decided to take a look at it. I put the videotape in the VCR and pressed play, then sat down on the sofa and made myself comfortable while the video started. The first thing I noticed was that it was a home video. The family must have recorded it themselves. The parents and children were all laughing and looking like they were having fun. I was about to turn it off when I happened to notice someone else in the video. It was a girl who looked like she was in her late teens. It seemed like she was the previous babysitter. She looked very familiar. It seemed like I recognized her from somewhere. Perhaps she went to my school. Then it finally hit me. Oh my freaking God, I thought. It was the missing girl from the news report. My hands were shaking. My whole body was trembling. I just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. I jumped out of my seat, ejected the video, and put it back in its case. Then I remembered the jars in the fridge. I had to see what was in those jars. With a shudder, I went to the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Maybe I'm just overreacting, I thought. I reached in and I took out the second jar. Peeling back the brown paper wrapper, I could see long pale hunks of meat and strips of fat floating in the red liquid. Some of the meat looked like it had skin on it. Human skin. I could also see what looked like strands of hair. Long hair. Human hair. I was so scared I felt like I was about to pee my pants. I ripped off the rubber band that was sealing the jar and peered inside. There was an eyeball staring back at me. Horrified, I dropped the jar and it smashed on the kitchen floor. I ran into the living room and put my jacket on. I grabbed the videotape and stuffed it in my pocket. When I came home, out to the hallway, Sebastian was standing at the foot of the stairs. "Where are you going?" he asked. I just remembered. I stammered. "I forgot something. I have to go home and get it. I'll be back home. Be back in a few minutes." Damien and Lenka came running down the stairs. "You can't go," screeched Damien. "You can't leave us on our own." "I'm calling our parents," shouted Lenka as she picked up the phone and began dialing numbers. Sebastian grabbed hold of my leg and wouldn't let go. "You have to stay," he squealed. "We're hungry." His grip on me was extremely tight, but I managed to shake him off and ran out the front door. As I dashed to my car, I saw the parents pulling up in the driveway. I didn't stop for a moment. I just jumped in my car and locked all the doors. The children were on the doorstep screaming and crying. The mother and father got out of the car and they came running over. There was an angry look on their faces. "What's wrong?" they shouted. "Where are you going? Come back here." I didn't answer. I just turned the key in the ignition and revved the engine. They started banging on the windows. I floored the accelerator and tore out of there like a bat out of hell and never looked back. I didn't stop until I came to the police station. I told the police officers everything I knew and handed over the videotape as evidence. The police immediately dispatched 2 patrol cars, but by the time they arrived at the house, the parents and children were gone. They just took the car and disappeared. The police searched the house and found the jars in the fridge. They also found human flesh and bones in the basement. They did tests and confirmed that these were the remains of the missing girl. They never managed to track down the parents or the children. They're still out there somewhere, probably living under a different name, probably still on the hunt for new victims. Do you want my advice? Be careful who you're babysitting for. A few years ago, there was a young man named Brian who went to university. He didn't have enough money to live in the campus accommodation, so he had to rent an apartment on his own in the city. After he'd been living there alone for a while, he began to notice some strange things happening. Often when he came back from college, the curtains in his bedroom would be drawn, when he distinctly remembered having left them open when he had left that morning. At other times, some of his belongings seemed to have been moved and other possessions were nowhere to be found. These strange occurrences started to creep Brian out, so the young man decided to talk to his friends, Trisha and Alex, about the situation. They met him at a local diner, and over coffee he told them all about the strange things he had noticed. "Maybe I'm just being paranoid," said Brian, "but I just get this sneaking suspicion that someone is breaking into my apartment during the day while I'm at university." "And what?" interrupted Alex. "Rearranging your curtains and moving your stuff around? Who in their right mind would bother doing that?" "It sounds crazy, but I think you might have a stalker," said Trisha. "It's a possibility. If it's true, I think the best thing to do is contact the police." "What can the police do?" asked Alex. "They're not going to spend their time keeping your apartment under surveillance. Besides, there's no damage to any of your things. There's no sign of a break-in. In short, there's no evidence." "So what options then?" pleaded Brian. "I just can't do anything." "I know how you can put your mind at ease," said Trisha. "It's easy. Just get a video camera, set it up in your bedroom, and leave it running when you go to school. If you really do have a stalker, you can show the tape to the police as evidence." "You know, that's a great idea," said Brian. "And if you're reading paranoid and crazy, you can show the tape to your psychiatrist," joked Alex. That night, Brian borrowed Trisha's video camera and brought it home. The very next morning, he hid it discreetly under some folders on his desk. Before he went to school, he pressed the record button and left it running. During the day, while he sat taking notes and lectures, the young man forgot all about the video camera. It was not until he arrived home and went into his bedroom that he remembered his plan. Taking the video camera out from its hiding place, he pressed the stop button. Then he took out his mobile phone and called his friend. "Hey Trisha," he said, "I just got home. I'm going to watch the video." "Cool," said Trisha. "Don't hang up. Tell me if you see anything." He pressed play and watched the recording on the video's camera. He saw himself leaving for school in the morning and closing the bedroom door. Then there was nothing. He pressed fast forward and scanned through the video. The room was empty. "Still nothing," he said. "I can wait," replied Trisha. "Anyways, there's nothing worth watching on TV at the moment." "Oh my God," cried Brian as he pressed play on the camera. What? Trisha begged excitedly. "The door's opening," said Brian. "It's a woman." "What's she doing?" asked Trisha. "Just standing there, closing the door, walking around." "Oh my God, so weird. What does she look like?" "You can't see her face. Long black stringy hair, tattered dress." "Do you know her?" "No, I don't recognize her at all. She's carrying a knife, a big kitchen knife. She's going through my trash. Now she's picking up my clothes and sniffing them. Ugh, gross. What's wrong with her?" "She's going over to the closet. She just got into the closet." "Fast forward and see if she does anything else." He scanned through the video for a while, but the room was empty. "You know what this means?" said Brian. "I have the evidence now. I can go to the police and they'll take me seriously." "I know," said Trisha. "They'll have to. Alex is totally gonna freak out when he sees this." "No doubt. He didn't believe you, but I did." "I know you're a good friend." "Oh my God." What? Brian pressed play again. "The door's opening and it's opening again," said Brian. "Who is it?" asked Trisha. "Oh, it's okay," said Brian. "It's just me coming home from school." He watched himself on the screen, shutting off the camera. Let's go to the police now, said Trisha. I'll go with you. You can show them the tape. Okay, I'll meet you at the diner in 15 minutes, said Brian as he grabbed the video camera. Okay, wait a minute, said Trisha. You said she got into the closet. Did she ever leave? Brian, did she ever get out of the closet? A chill ran down Brian's spine. Behind him, he heard the closet creak open. Brian, get out of there, screamed Trisha. But it was too late. The phone went dead. When she tried to call him again, there was no answer. Later that evening, the police found the body of the 18-year-old college student lying in a pool of blood. He'd been stabbed 21 times. The video camera was clutched in his cold, dead hands. When the police examined the camera, they discovered that the memory card was missing. No trace of the woman was ever found. Right now, she could be hiding in your closet. Ever since you were a child, you were terribly afraid of your bathroom. You don't know why, but whenever you would see your bathroom door during nighttime, you would be invaded by an overwhelming sensation of unease. You developed a habit out of locking your bathroom's door before going to sleep. You would never rest at ease until you close and lock the door and whisper to yourself, "It's locked." You never understood your own fears, and as you grew up, though you still felt them, you began trying to overcome them, or at least ignore them as best as you could. Although the feeling lingers, you become bolder and bolder and feel as if you could forget all about the seemingly unreasonable childhood. You then decide to stop locking the door. Rolling around in bed, you try to muster up the willpower necessary not to look or think about the unsettling door. With some struggle, you finally fall asleep. You suddenly wake up in the middle of the night. The first thing you realize that you're not in bed anymore. You lie in a hard and cold tiled floor, surrounded by nothing but darkness and silence. You try to feel around yourself when your hand touches a bathtub, your bathtub. You freeze, your heart starts pacing, while in panic you try to hear any sound indicating the presence of anything else in that bathroom. You can't hear anything over the sound of your own panicked breath, and the thought that something could hear your breathing instead only deepens your despair. Being able to hold yourself together, you rush for the door as fast as you can. As you try to turn the handle, you realize your mistake. Your heart stops. It's locked. Suddenly, you hear someone else's breathing coming from behind your back. The memories I have with my grandmother are very fond. She used to live with my parents and me when I was about 6 and stayed with us until I went to college. She raised me on many wonderful things, such as spontaneous trips to the Natural History Museum, how to pick out flowers for every occasion, and even her own mother's secret recipe for the perfect fluffy blueberry pancakes. Every Sunday she would let me sleep in, but I would always wake up when I smelled those pancakes and heard her singing, "You Are My Sunshine." She would always come into my room with a short stack, and we'd share them before heading off to late morning service. And then we would spend the day together. Sunday has always been our day. So it's my first Sunday back home after graduation, and I can smell those pancakes, and I can hear her singing her in her worn and raspy southern accent just faintly. The only problem is, my grandmother died 2 weeks after I left for school, and her singing is getting closer.
If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. If you'd like to, you can follow me at Twitter. The handle is @FuzzyPantaloons, and I'll see you all next time.